So let's just jump right in with a pretty wild question. Is God an accident? I know, it's a huge thing to ask, but it's actually at the core of this really fascinating scientific theory we're going to dig into today. And this theory, it tries to solve one of the biggest puzzles there is about being human. I mean, think about it. From the most ancient civilizations all the way to our modern world, belief in the supernatural is, well, it's everywhere. We're talking about those big core ideas you find in pretty much every religion, right? The idea that you have a soul that's separate from your body, that your consciousness, somehow keeps going after you die, and of course, that the whole universe was designed by some kind of higher power. So the question is, why? Why are these ideas so unbelievably sticky? The usual answers you hear are pretty straightforward. People say it's about finding comfort, when you're facing death, or that it's all about community, the social glue that holds people together. And look, those things are definitely part of it, for sure, but what if they're not the whole story? A lot of cognitive scientists are now saying, hey, maybe we're missing the most important piece of the puzzle here. So what if belief in God isn't something that actually helped us survive, like an evolutionary adaptation? What if it's just an accidental side effect, a byproduct of other mental tools that were absolutely crucial for us to evolve? Yeah, an accident. That's the huge provocative idea we're going to get into. All right, first things first, let's get a handle on just how massive this thing is. We're not talking about some small niche belief here. This is woven into the very fabric of what it means to be human. Okay, take the US, for example. It's often held up as this really religious country. And the numbers are just, wow, 96% of people believe in God. But here's the part that might really surprise you. What about scientists? You'd think they'd be the most skeptical group, right? Well, even among them, 40% believe in a personal God. That is a huge number, and it kind of suggests there's something else going on here. And this isn't just an American thing, not by a long shot. It's so easy for us to think of, say, Europe as being super secular, but even there, belief is still the majority opinion. And once you start looking at Asia, Africa, the Middle East, it becomes crystal clear. Strong religious belief is the global norm. If anything, it's being an atheist that's the real exception to the rule. Okay, so if belief is this common, how do we explain it? Let's take a look at the two usual suspects, the big theories that have been around for a long, long time. So on one hand, you've got the opiate theory. You've probably heard of it. It's tied to guys like Marx and Freud. The basic idea is that, life is tough and religion is kind of like a painkiller for all that anxiety and fear of death. Then, on the other hand, you have the fraternity theory. This one says that religion is really just a super effective way to build strong groups, a social glue that helps your tribe stick together and do better than other tribes. But here's the thing. There's a huge hole in that opiate theory. The cognitive scientist Steven Pinker puts it perfectly. He says, hungry people don't cheer themselves up by just believing they had a big meal. It doesn't work that way. The idea of heaven is only comforting if you genuinely believe it exists first. So the theory explains why you might want to believe, but it doesn't explain the belief itself. See the problem? And that social glue theory? It's got a very similar problem. It's fantastic at explaining things like rituals or special diets or sacrifices, all that stuff that makes a group feel like a group. But it completely misses the main event, the supernatural part. Why do you need gods? Why do you need souls or ancestor spirits? I mean, you could build a strong community around, a sports team. So why is it almost always built around these supernatural ideas? And this is where we get a plot twist. It brings us to a third, totally different explanation. And this one doesn't come from sociology or history. It comes from the science of our own brains. So here's the core idea, the big shift in thinking. This new theory says that religious belief isn't an adaptation. It's not something our brains evolved to do. Instead, it just happened. It's an accident, a side effect of other things our brains did evolve to do. Okay, let me give you an analogy. Think about art. Our eyesight evolved for really practical reasons, right? To spot food, to see predators coming, to not walk off cliffs. There's zero survival advantage in looking at a painting and feeling something. But because we have this incredibly advanced visual system, we can get pleasure from just looking at colors and shapes on a canvas. Enjoying art is kind of like a happy accident. And this theory says religion is just like that. All right, so if religion is an accident, what caused it? What are these mental systems we're talking about? Well, the first one is all about how we naturally, instinctively think about our minds and our bodies. Psychologists have a name for it: common sense dualism. It's that gut feeling, you know the one, that your mind, the you that's listening right now, is separate from your physical body. It's like you're a pilot driving a machine. You don't need anyone to teach you this, it just feels right, obvious even. And what's fascinating is that research with babies suggests this feeling might come from the fact that we have like two different operating systems running in our brains from day one. One system is for understanding the physical world. You know, balls fall down, solid things can't pass through other solid things. The other system is for understanding people, beings with intentions, goals, and feelings. They're two totally separate toolkits for two totally different jobs. And check out how this plays out. There's this classic experiment where they tell little kids a story about a mouse that gets eaten by an alligator. Then they ask the kids some questions. The kids totally get that the mouse's body isn't working anymore. They'll say its brain stopped, its legs stopped. But then, when you ask them, is the mouse still hungry? Does it still miss its mom? A huge number of them say yes. Their natural intuition is that even when the body is gone, the mind, the soul, just keeps on going. So that's the first piece. Our brains naturally create the idea of souls that can exist without a body. Now, for the second piece of the puzzle, what makes us think that a great big soul created the entire world? You know, even Richard Dawkins, probably the most famous atheist on the planet, admits this. He says, and I'm paraphrasing, that biology is the study of things that look like they were designed on purpose. And he's right. I mean, you look at something like the human eye, it just screams design. It feels so obvious that someone or something must have made it. And the reason it feels that way is because our social brain is always looking for intention, for agency. It's on high alert. In fact, it's so sensitive that it goes into overdrive. It's the reason you see a face in a burnt piece of toast, or you yell at your laptop like it's doing it on purpose. We're just hardwired to see purpose and intention absolutely everywhere. And this sets up a huge clash in our minds. In one corner, you've got Darwin's theory of natural selection. It's a completely blind, random, goalless process. There's no designer. And in the other corner, you've got intentional design. This idea says no, complex things need a smart creator. And that idea fits our brain's instincts like a glove. And that's really the heart of it. Natural selection is, without a doubt, one of the most important scientific ideas ever. But it just doesn't feel right. It goes against our deepest intuitions. Our brains are just not wired to easily accept that something as beautiful and complex as life could be an accident. Our gut feeling, our default setting, is to say, nope, someone must have designed this. And that's why the idea of a creator is so powerful and feels so natural, right from childhood. So let's put it all together. You take our natural feeling that minds are separate from bodies, and you add in our brain's tendency to see design and purpose everywhere, and what do you get? You get the fundamental building blocks of almost every religion. And this is the final crucial takeaway. The specific stories, the Garden of Eden or reincarnation or the details of heaven, those are things you learn from your culture. But the big foundational ideas, the idea of a soul that lives on after death, and the idea of a creator who designed the universe, those aren't learned. They just bubble up spontaneously from the way our minds work. They're the brain's default settings. Which leaves us with a really big, kind of heavy final question to think about. If our brains are naturally wired from birth to believe in souls and to see a designer's hand in the world, but science tells us a totally different story about minds made of matter and evolution without a plan, well, does that mean science and religion are just destined to clash forever? Is this a deep, fundamental tension baked into being human that we can never really escape?